Welcome everybody to this webinar. Thank you for joining us in this webinar. I'm very pleasant to present also my co-speakers. First of all, Vanessa Peperel from Anquanima and Pierre Mitchell from the Spend Matters. And I thank you for all of you to attend this webinar that I hope will be very interesting for you. So a few words about what you will see. You will see a presentation from Pierre Mitchell, first of all, about the nightmares of the CPOs that are facing in this year with a deep survey on the topics, the most relevant topics. And then Vanessa Peperel will show you very valuable information about his experience, her experiences in treating complex situations of procurement data in his experience in the automotive industry and currently in the financial industries. Quite interesting topics to see in detail with her experience. And then last but something of takeaways that you can get home and valuable, I hope, information you can get from this webinar. Thank you again to participate. Few words only about Creatives. Creatives is a company focused on quality in the procurement area, quality of the data. We are very experienced on managing complex sources of data with multi-language situations, with data coming from different systems, coming from different coding situations, and so try to harmonize those data and make possible to use those data across complex environments like the ones of our main clients you can see in this slide. This experience is based on unique technology capabilities based on artificial intelligence. But I pass the word to Pierre Mitchell to introduce his speech. Thank you, Pierre.
Thank you, Adriano, and thank you everybody for attending. I will try to move quickly here beyond some of the basic things. So just a quick introduction about myself and my organization. I lead research at a company called Spend Matters. We are a technology research and advisory firm, and we focus primarily within the procurement area, but also a little bit in the supply chain and the inbound supply chain. And we are used for market intelligence in terms of helping procurement and supply practitioners understand how to make smart choices around the different types of technology that are out there in the market. And there's a lot of it. We track over 500 some vendors in terms of just application vendors, but also providers who do things around managing data and other types of managed services. And it's a very large ecosystem. And if you haven't checked out Spend Matters, do go to spendmatters.com. You can sign up for our newsletter and all those types of good things. So if you look at the providers that we do track, as mentioned in kind of the large ecosystem, there's certainly a lot of app providers, but there are also kind of various other types of providers. And so this is kind of the Where's Waldo slide. You can kind of see Creatives certainly there as part of a key part of the overall analytics infrastructure. And we'll be diving into that here right now. So let's kind of get into it. So if you think about where chief procurement officers are looking to spend their money, and if they vote with their dollars, this is a study that is currently in process right now that we're leading CPO research. And if you look at we asked the question, if you suddenly were able to get some more budget, where would you invest your money? Would it be more people? Would it be, what would it be? And if you look at the investment, what's fascinating is that there are more CPOs who want to invest money in analytics and data than they do in the technology applications and such. So the tools are great, but the fuel that goes through those tools, the data and the analytics using that data, is viewed as more as even more important. So that's kind of an interesting insight, and that speaks to why we're having this webinar today. So let's go to the next slide. And if you then kind of look at data sounds great, but what's the ROI of data? Well, you have to kind of then think about what's the ROI of analytics and procurement to the business. And you really have to make that connection between data and ultimately business outcomes and supply chain outcomes. And so if you're going to have success, you need to be able to make good decisions on where to focus your time and where to focus on risk versus reward. And that means answering certain questions, but also kind of identifying new questions and data that you maybe hadn't even thought of before. So this is the power of analytics. And if you get specific about that, that means how do we look at spend analytics? And spend is, what you pay. If you look at supply analytics, it's kind of what you get. And that means supply is related to suppliers, and it's related to spend categories, and it's related to the entire supply base, and it's related to the entire supply chain. And if you're trying to kind of make sense of all the data that gets fed through these analytics to make these decisions, it's a very messy world out there, and there are a lot of data sources. Think about how many supplier masters you might have, as an example, within your organization, and how much data is scattered just around suppliers themselves, and contracts and items and et cetera. So the idea is to kind of systematically aggregate and cleanse, enrich, to deduplicate, to relate and contextualize this information so that you can use it to make those decisions. And that's not an easy task, and that's why we look to the proverbial machine to kind of help us, and tools to help us do that. So if we go to the next slide, and I don't know, I'm a big fan of pyramids. This is kind of the Maslow's hierarchy of value for procurement, and it's a framework I developed kind of in a previous life. But the whole purpose of procurement is how do we get more value out of spend and supply? And as we do that, obviously we need to keep the supply lines flowing, and that means supply risk and other types of intelligence. But certainly we have to continue to reduce unneeded costs. We have to kind of see where the demand is and what our stakeholders are doing so that we can make sure that we get them the supply and get the value that they need from it. But also some of the more innovative areas that are a focus right now: top line growth, digital transformation, ESG concerns, these types of things. They are still all built on a foundation of data within the supply chains. And so if you're going to move up that stack, you have to get yourself out of the day-to-day and managing the plumbing, and get yourself using the water out of the tap to kind of drive more value. And so this is where the wonderful world of supply and spend analytics lives, and certainly spend analysis is a part of that. But it's not just AP history and PO history and looking at the the exhaust from the car. We need to kind of say, focus on the engine and where is the car actually going to go. And that is, if we go to the next slide, where we want to kind of focus some of our efforts. So when you get into analyzing spend, and it seems like an easy exercise, in building a spend cube, anybody that has done this knows it's not so easy, right? Because it relies, that fuel is built on many sets of molecules. We have supplier data, cost data, item data, contracts, budgets, external data. There's all sorts of that stuff that feeds into the analytics. And as you get more sophisticated and you're trying to kind of bring more real-time, granular analytics, and you want to get into not just how much did I spend on, on what, with whom, but start getting into why did I spend it? Did I spend too much? Where should I spend it? What other types of value can I add as that we expand the scope of these analytics? That's where you're going to have to understand the data that is aggregated and then classified in the right way to make these decisions. So this is what lurks beneath. And if you kind of then look forward on the next slide and you start plotting your digital transformation, it can be a very straightforward evolution. And so this was a little series that we did. It was called 50 Shades of Pay, which was just a way to kind of start with some of your basic payment analytics and PO analytics, and start to incrementally add a little more sophistication and value as you add more and more. So start with the basic analysis, then add in working capital, then move upstream into requisitioning, then tie in the contracts, then start to bring in the compliance lens, then so there, your path may vary, but there is a very it is a revolution through evolution. And if you're going to do a digital transformation, it doesn't have to be some large thing. You can actually do it in a self-funded way and do it in a straightforward way. And one of the areas that I highlighted here on number 9 was I went back into the past, and 15 years ago, I coined this term called guided buying, which now is kind of relatively well adopted in the industry. But the whole point of that was to help guide users to the right catalogs and suppliers and processes. And the only way to do that is to actually understand what it is they're looking for. And that means classification and trying to understand the spend category, real-time spend categorization. That categorization is something that you would certainly build for good spend analysis, but to serve that up real time in context, that is what's happening more and more, and not just in this use case, but in guided everything. So as we try to really help employees and give them the tools and guide them to the right paths, these are the types of analytics that we need to use. And so if we go to the next slide, the good news is you are never going to run out of analytics to kind of focus on and value that you can create. And your pathway from tactical spend visibility to strategic supply management is one that is for your path alone, but at the same time, others have also been down those paths. And so the more that you can reuse some of the tools that have solved some of the standard problems in that plumbing, so that we can all have clean water and clean data around aggregation, classification, extracting out attributes and features out of the data, all these types of things, those are things that kind of get you to the next level. And wherever your path takes within these types of analytics, it really is built on a foundation of good data and good fuel. Whether you drive a Ferrari or whether you drive a big 4x4 truck, you got to have just as clean of data to power those engines. So anyway, let's move. I think I've beaten that point to death. So let's get into the analytics themselves. So as you move into more sophisticated use cases in analytics, you're going to move from on a value evolution of the analytics themselves and probably most of you have seen these types of things, from descriptive data to getting into more diagnostic data to actually kind of help alert you to opportunities, to help you visualize the data so that you can find new opportunities, but then eventually letting the machine start to prescribe actions. And these can be very low level, as like what spend category is, the user trying to find what, or it can actually start to get into, let's now start to add some additional rules, let's add some unsupervised machine learning, let's start to actually bring the value of the analytics and the tools up with us so that we can kind of move our value up to the next level. So if you think about Alexa and Alexa skills, that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to build more and more digital skills so that we can elevate our human skills to do more and more value to the business. Because if you don't do it, eventually, your skills are going to be put into a bot, into an app, and you have to stay ahead of the algorithm, as we say. So as you move up through your analytics journey, you need to kind of not only focus on the infrastructure for aggregation and cleansing and things like this, but also begin to start putting in the purpose-built machine learning algorithms and pieces that will help you in very specific use cases where you don't want to spend your time doing that. You want to focus your time on the good stuff. And that's actually on the next slide. If you think about actually, this is just a quick view in terms of the data problem. If you actually think about your evolution and your journey from a digital transformation to analytics transformation, guess what the number one barrier is? It's the data, right? It's not, there are so many tools that you can stand up, but if the data flowing through those tools is no good, you have a problem. So obviously we got to focus on that data. Okay, so let's go to the next slide and let's talk about solving this. So when you get into analytics, there are some steps here that you have to kind of go through, right? You're going to have to aggregate the data from all over the enterprise. You're going to have to cleanse the data so it's not dirty, and also enriching the data and categorizing and enriching the data, and then harmonizing it and hooking it up into the different business process oriented systems, as well as into kind of workbenches and dashboards and these types of things. So as you do that, you suddenly find the sins of the problems of the master data. And the same steps that you go through are the same steps that you go through with the master data itself. If you do master data management, you have to do master data analytics, and you're going to have to get into those issues around supplier data, item data, you know, et cetera. And there's a lot of problems with that data, and it requires organizational issues around information data governance, but also this technical piece about it. So if you're gonna, where you really want to spend your time, and I think we'll touch upon this later, you want to focus your time not on the investment side, let the machine do that. You want to focus on the analytics and the integration side and bring that to the rest of the business and let them focus their time on this as well. And if you do that, you're going to be a superhero in helping, you know, helping the rest of the business get those tools that they need. But it requires work. You got to work with IT. It requires a lot of change management. I think Vanessa's going to talk about that a little bit. But the key is when you have a transformation, and let's say I pick from Lean, which is DMAIC, define, measure, analyze, improve, control. Analytics, the A is analytics. That really sits in the entire continuous improvement flow of where you want to focus, where are you now, where could you be, then actually go and make the implementation, and then put the control systems in to make sure you hold those gains, right? So that's the analytics, and the analytics are only as good as the data that you're analyzing. So, okay, so let's start to wrap up here. So as you think about how to construct your solutions, I just want to leave you, and I know this seems a little busy, but what I want to leave you with is, before we kind of wrap up on the summary thoughts, is as you think about your processes, those processes are then going to consume a bunch of data. So that process and that engagement, and think about dashboards and things like that, is ultimately going to need data. And where the real problem is around the master data. And that requires that you have really good data models, but it also requires that you have good data services and that you are serving up the analytics into those individual areas, and not just the reporting out of individual modules, but cross-process analytics that uncover broader opportunities across an end-to-end process, whether it's source to pay, forecast to fulfill, cash to cash, the kind of the broad looking view. As you bring those new sets of analytics to bear and insert those into the system of process and the system of engagement, you're going to have to then be able to do the work on the system of record and the system of reference and the system of reality as we get into Internet of Things and sensors and all that external data, to really manage that data well, so that you're really serving up clean, real-time fuel into the applications that really need them. So, okay, so I think I've told that story a few times within this. So just to summarize, the first thing is, certainly functions need to add more value to the business through analytics. But if you think about procurement and supply chain, you want to not just serve up those analytics into your stakeholders and into the business units, but help IT, work with IT so that they can get value out of their investments that they might have in some BI tools or whatever that are sitting up on top. You also want to help finance, kind of deliver value. So if they're trying to help the business get better controls and spend visibility and budgeting and spend planning, great. You're going to need some of the same types of data. Help your finance partners and your functional partners also be heroes. So that means that you have to then build these capabilities around the data, but also, around, you have to have the right talent to be able to do that. So if you do that, then you'll be able to kind of manage this data, which is the fuel, and you want to make sure it's not dirty. Obviously, that's why we're talking about this. But you also want to understand that the data is changing. It's not just internal tabular data in a spend cube. More and more, as we start going outside in analytics instead of inside out, we have to be able to bring in data lakes rather than data warehouses, real-time information from commodity prices, real-time information from suppliers, collaboration with external entities, et cetera. And as you do that, and as the way in which you model the data becomes more taxonomy driven and network and graph driven, you need to be able to evolve your analytics and your data management. And artificial intelligence and machine learning is a great way to do that, because those are inherently network and taxonomy based. So that is a good way to kind of get into it. So, as you kind of then look at the market and all these tools to kind of help you do that, this is where the good news and the bad news is that there's tons of options in the supply market. And so it's really about how do you make the best use of them within your particular environment. And so that's where the way to think about it is, and my final point is, kind of think like Amazon. And what Amazon does in their little flywheel and what they do as a business is they build a bunch of capabilities, let's say in their online presence. They, as an example, they had to get really good at managing mass data. That led them to building what is essentially AWS, right? And so that let them build a whole new set of technology, a whole business built around those capabilities. So your challenge is use the analytics and the data incrementally to solve, problems in the current problems, but also build new capabilities that you now bring into these adjacent areas like I described before. And if you can do that, you will and help the business and help yourself build your capabilities around analytics and data and generating value, and you'll be happy for many years, and you will never get replaced by the algorithm. So with that, I'm gonna bring it over to Vanessa, and she's kind of in the trenches every day within her organization and clients, and I'm definitely looking forward to hear her perspective on how that's actually been happening in the trenches. So Vanessa, I'm going to turn it over to you. Might be muted as well, Vanessa.
Hello, now do you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yep, now we're good.
Perfect. I was saying that it was awesome, Pierre, your explanation and your presentation. Thank you so much for letting me be part of this event. I will introduce myself. I'm Vanessa Pepperell. Now I'm the COO, Chief Operating Officer, and Strategic Director for Procurement in Aquanima. That is the procurement area within the Banco Santander. We have some external clients, but for you to understand what it's Aquanima, we have a short video for you to know what is our company business. Please, Jessica.
The way we buy and sell products and services is changing at the fastest pace in history. Humankind has been taking huge steps towards a more connected and fluid world. Company supply chain is no longer just about savings. We can now acquire goods from anyone and anywhere all over the planet. And managing risk is more important than ever before, which brings huge opportunities and challenges to the procurement industry. Aquanima is a leading global player in this field. For the past 2 decades, Aquanima has been the procurement function of the Santander Group, a leading financial entity that allows us to acquire the necessary resources and robust structure to help clients achieve efficient results and grow their businesses. With a presence in Europe and North and Latin America and over 500 multidisciplinary experts, we offer procurement solutions to more than 120 external clients. Our goal: to make customers more efficient by maximizing their savings, and we achieve this by connecting bespoke value-added solutions to their changing needs. By creating long-term relationships and becoming their strategic partner to help them achieve efficiency in their day-to-day. Our expertise ranges from tactical and strategic negotiations to contract and supplier risk management, both globally and locally. We use innovative differentiating tools together with comprehensive global know-how to manage the end-to-end procurement process in a seamless, agile and transparent manner. We develop technological platforms that offer the most efficient sourcing solutions for our customers, maximizing opportunities, managing risk, and in turn improving users' experience. By getting closer to our customers and suppliers, being their strategic partner and putting them in the center of everything we do. In Aquanima, we make procurement streamlined, responsible, and better connected globally. Aquanima, connecting value, creating flow.
Okay, so thank you very much for playing the video. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so first of all, I've been in automotive industry for almost 20 years, and I moved to Aquanima 6 months ago. So one of the first tasks I was asked is to make a comparison in between banking and automotive businesses. They seem to be really far away, nothing to do one with the other. But in procurement, I realized that they were closer than what we think. I mean, during this area and during last 5 to 6 years, the banking sector has been suffering from closer margins and losses. So they're closer to the automotive industry in this sense. I mean, they have a challenge ahead. We have a challenge, all of us, in every sector, that it's bringing value to the business, because the margins are smaller and smaller every time. And as you already know, we have only 2 levers. One is to increase the sales and increase the incoming, and the other one is to shorten up the costs and be more efficient. So in this sense, procurement is one of the most important areas and departments in the company, and we have to show up to the organization how we can bring this value. And one of the main topics and one of the most important topics is to take the best decisions and give this information in a way to our internal clients and stakeholders, so they are sure about what they're going to decide. So can we go to the next slide, please? So when you arrive to a company, and it happened to me first in Gestamp, where I was working, and then in Aquanima, Banco de Santander, when I asked for different kinds of information, I always often received these answers. Well, it will take some time. This is not automatic. I don't know what you're talking about. It's the first time that someone asked me for this thing. And once that I have this information, the numbers were different from the owner of the data. I suppose this is not new to you. You face every day these challenges, and you face every day with the suffering of not having a data with quality enough for you to work on, do these steps that Pierre was explaining to you before. I know that is a challenge, but it's a way and it's a path that you all can take. And I will share my experience first in automotive and then in banking, that they, as I said, they seem very different, but at the same time, they're so similar. So what I'm going to try to bring to you is examples about how to survey and survive the perfect storm and the data nightmare, as I was asked. Next one, please. So how do I face, when I come into a company, or if I'm in a company, how do I face this challenge? I always say, if you do the things in the same way, you will get the same results. If you want to do the things in a different way, you will get different results. So be disruptive, challenge your stakeholders, challenge your internal clients, challenge your organization and your teams, ask them for different approaches on the day-to-day work. Propose through business cases and quick wins. And with this, you will show them the value of a right data for them to take the right decisions. Next, please. Okay, so you will be, if you see in this slide, the procurement maturity level. Your organization and yourselves will be placed in one of these different stages. You need to allocate your procurement area into this map and start moving. Don't wait until you are best in class to start with new apps or new ways of managing data. You can start wherever your organization is. I mean, no matter the maturity level of your organization is, that you can start working on getting your data reliable on other. Benefit from high impact projects and start changing the culture into the organization. That's the way that we are trying to focus this project right now. So as I said, no matter the stage you're that you can start moving into this data cleansing and order the information. Next, please. So the main goal is to transform data into valuable information. So my advice would be to set goals and targets as short, mid, or long term. Stick to the plan, count on technology, and of course, make your best friend forever the IT department. So as the next slide explains, this is the stages as I see according to my experience. So I can share some examples here. When I started working with the data in Gestam, we started by cleansing the data. What does it mean? It means that you are starting working with items and revise if they're classified correctly, if they are harmonized, and put them together into a clean database. And to keep it clean, you have to assure the compliance. You have to create a common language within the organization. For example, if you are talking about a PC or a computer, you need to make sure that everyone, everywhere, understand that this PC computer belongs to a certain kind of taxonomy of family into your category structure. So you start creating this language, you start creating new procedures. So when you create a new item, you need to fill in some mandatory fields to have this information complete, reliable, and clean. Then it's natural. I mean, it comes natural. The next step, it's now that I have the information clean and I know that it's clean and I keep it clean, what do I do next? What I do is to enrich this information. So, for example, talking about the example of the PCs, because it's something very common and very useful for every single company, I will get an approach on finding identicals. So the attributes of the PC, for example, the memory size, the speed of the computer, the size of the computer, are attributes to reach the item that is the PC. Okay, so once that you have it, you start naturally realizing that you can simplify your number of references, and at the same time you will simplify the way that you approach your negotiations and the way that you check the compliance. And this is where the real value starts, because the next step is that you have this information, you have simplified the negotiations with suppliers, you have simplified the compliance, and then you realize that with this information you can start impacting the profit and loss account by projects further away than the mere negotiations. For example, you can start sharing warehouses and stocks, so you lower the number of pieces that you have in your warehouse, for example. And if we talk about industry, if you simplify and you harmonize the number of references, for example, if we are talking about cylinders of gas, if we are able to use the same cylinder with the same brand, same number of liters, and same gas, we can share on a warehouse a minimum stock level So we will reduce the impact on the profit and loss account and the impact on the balance sheet. And this is a value added that procurement does through the cleansing and data management. We can go to the next slide, please. And how do I do this from procurement area? This is not a work to be done on a standalone procurement project. As you know, from procurement, we face the fact that the data is not only coming from procurement. Once that you create an item, there are many actors playing the different roles. For example, accounting, finance, the technical departments, and then procurement. You have to play this role, this leading role, because you are the one leading the project, but you have to make them understand, and this is what I'm going to explain about the challenge about the change management. You have to set a robust data management and governance program. Even if you are leading, you have to count on the rest of the areas of the company to be aligned with the strategy of the company, and also to make them understand how they're going to benefit from this project, because this is, as I said, not only coming from procurement, but all of the company. So depending on the time frame, you have to move into different stages to get to the aspirational and more strategic project regarding the data. So you work in different ways, as I said, on convincing and showing the different areas how they can benefit from the work, because don't forget that all that we are talking about, it's getting alignment on the data throughout the company. I mean, can we go to the next one, please? So as I explained, as I see, new information and new KPIs moves towards new goals, because you realize that you have more information, and these become new projects. For the new projects, we need to create new procedures and governance. So we need to align different areas to get them on board and make them part of these projects. New procedures moves the organization to new requirements, and new requirements are transforming the organization. And this is what I'm right now focused in Aquanima. We are now transforming on getting a higher level with self-procurement, with catalogs, with cleansing the data, with integration, with different systems. And we are bringing together people from different areas. We are bringing together the latest technology and processes. Sometimes we faced problems on the data classification, on the data lifecycle, on the master data. But at the end, it's a question, as I said, of showing with through business cases and quick wins how they're going to benefit from these projects. So I encourage you to take the path, no matter how mature you are, no matter how big or small your company is, that you can benefit from this approach of data and cleansing the data. I'm more than happy afterwards if you want to question something. I don't know how I'm on time, but that's it. I wanted to share with you some of my examples, and on top of that, to encourage you to lead the path. I mean, to be the guide in the data regarding procurement, on the projects will come naturally. I mean, your questioning, your self-questioning on how do I bring value added to the company through data, through improving the data, will come naturally. And use the most benefit of the newest technology, like creatives. I've been working with them in Gestam, and I'm going to work with them here in Aquanima and Banco Santander, because I firmly think that this kind of technologies and companies will bring the most valuable information through artificial intelligence, and it will boost the path. It will give you the speed that you need, and it will give you the information that you need. So thank you. That's all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vanessa, for your words and your experience, valuable insights on your journey. So as is obvious to say that data is key, obviously. Is the core enabler of any business initiative, cost optimization in the merger and acquisition process, find the synergies where they are from the procurement perspective, make strategic sourcing decisions and inventory optimization. So any kind of business initiatives in this area have the data quality as an enabler factor. So we at Creactis are working on that area from a long time. And next slide, please. And we have developed some solutions dedicated for specific business initiatives, like I mentioned before. So the foundation of this is the capability from the point of view of the improvement of the data, harmonization of the data, enrichment of the data, is based on our artificial intelligence engine that make possible to have in a single point of view data cleansed, enriched, and qualified using these capabilities developed to cover most of the languages that you can find in the data. That is another complexity, and the fact that most of the time the most valuable information is written in the descriptions of the purchase order, is written in the description of the material master data. And so you really have to have the possibility to understand this information using a machine instead of a human being. And this information is quite cryptic, and this crypticity can be solved by the machine. So all the information that is in there that the humans understand very well because they have a knowledge in their mind that make possible to understand can be understood by the machine too. And what happened with this enriched information? That you can focus on spend analytics, for example. So we call this area ex post, because no company starts from scratch. You have a lot of data there. You need to know your history. There is a way of saying that you have to know your history to make better decisions for your future. And then knowing the past in deep is an enabler factor. So spend analytics, for example, makes possible that I can have harmonized and categorized in a very granular way the last 2 years of spending. And then I can use this information to have a dashboard in a current system, so we can provide with the categorizer this capability, or you can use our spend analytics tool that is focused on specific features that are dedicated for spend analytics we have developed over the time. In the middle, there is a part that is ex post and a part that is ex ante. What that means that, again, material master data is already there. You have probably hundreds of thousands of material master data that has been created over the time, so also service master data, or maybe are the result of merge and acquisitions, and probably they are coming from different systems, described in different languages, so you need to cleanse up all the data that is in there. And cleanse up means explicitly find the duplicates, because find the duplicates means that you can have a big impact on your inventories, and then make possible with the ex ante approach, so the smart creation, the possibility to create new data, avoiding the creation of new duplicates because the technology can support the end user to do so. And fully ex ante means that there are this data assistant, real-time categorization with the prompt and real-time matching with the matcher that can support the end user to do their day-by-day job better. So they are data systems that can be integrated in the current tools for procurement or in the current ERPs to make possible that the people find easily where they are looking for using their own natural language, and then the artificial intelligence is in charge to understand the need, the description in that language, and to propose solutions. And solution means with the matcher, the possibility that that description could be matched against some existing material master data or some existing catalog entries, and so facilitate the matching between the existing negotiated items or services, or in the case those items or services don't exist inside of your master data or inside of your catalog, to propose the right category. Because the categorization is again crucial also for new entries, new purchase order, because connected to the categorization, most of the time there is also processes of category management, processes related for approvals, processes related for reportings, all based on that good categorization. So these are the solutions we have developed and are addressing exactly what you have heard today from Vanessa and from Pierre, that are the topics related with quality of the data as enabler factor. So what are the takeaways of today? Next slide, please. I suppose that in the next slide, you should see 3 main takeaways from our point of view. So data cleansing is the foundation for waking up from the nightmare of the data. So as Vanessa said, you have to start quickly, because it's not possible to start before with platforms or of every kind of solution without good data. So you can speed up the process, but at the end of the day, there is an old saying in the IT that everybody knows that is garbage in, garbage out. So to avoid this, obviously, data is key. The second is that having the house cleansed, maintain that house cleansed, make possible to maintain also the access to the heaven of the data. So the possibility to understand the data and to understand your company and what is going on every day. And finally, but not the less important thing, is what will happen with your organization in terms of refocusing the people with this new technology. There is a huge challenge here from the organizational point of view, because if the people are not anymore in charge to do time-consuming tasks, and instead they can use more time in valuable added activities, you need to think about how you can reorganize, how you can reskill people that probably are not familiar with the fact that they have to use more time to find solutions, to find new approaches, and to think different. That's exactly what Vanessa has said before. So our last slide is regarding that. So the embrace of the change management is exactly to make this pyramid completely in the opposite side. So the green part must be the big part of the value added that your organization can bring to the company, because the quality of the data and because the adoption of the right tools for your future transformation and digitization of the procurement. Thank you to all of you. And now we have a session of question and answer. please don't have fear, and we are here to answer your doubts and questions, please.
So I see one here that came to me, so I'll start this off. There was a question and from the audience. This is Pierre, by the way, and maybe I'll turn on my camera as well if you really care about seeing me. So it was, what is a good example for a KPI for data quality? That's a good question. I mean, I think it depends on the level that you're at. So one is, you can do some kind of, there's an ISO, methodology for overall data quality. But if you're looking at particularly around this area in terms of spend and master data, one is you can start, if you think about quality, like around cost of quality methodology, there's kind of external failure, which means when the process actually had a process failure because of the bad data. So for example, a general ledger miscode or something that happens, let's say, in the P2P process where that it was bad data that was causing the process error, the process breakdown. But you'd like to be able to move it upstream. And so that might be something like when we have let's say the dreaded 999 or miscellaneous code on the commodity taxonomy, categorization or something like that, where you're like, well, that's an error because they couldn't assign it perfectly. And Adriana, you can maybe chime in on that one in a second. But so there are kind of technical ones that you can kind of identify. There are like methodologies to assess, like a SMART methodology, specific, measurable, actionable, results-oriented, timely. And so, for example, timely, you can say, what is the frequency of refreshes that we have on our spend data? We want to move from, let's say, annually to quarterly to monthly to weekly to near real time, right? There's some things that you can just measure in your transformation as the data kind of improves. And then there's just kind of preventative measures that you can have in terms of who is touching what fields in the item master, supplier master, when it gets updated, and make sure that that data is getting properly updated at the source. And then you can kind of have the workflow and tracking on that master data management kind of process. So there's a few ways to do it. But Adriano, any insights on your side in terms of how you have seen folks kind of measure the quality coming in, let's say when you're doing the categorization and things like that?
Absolutely. One of the big things here is that because the mathematics is not an opinion, is an way of saying, you can measure the quality. So good thing to say is that if you have a system in place that make possible to extract random data and measure the quality with a proper statistic approach, you can have a clear understanding about the quality of the data you can get from these kind of activities. And obviously, this drives to you to have more, to be more confident on the decisions that you can take on the data itself. And basically, if you have good data, again, all the KPIs that you can build up based on that kind of measurements are more trustable. Because at the end of the day, the problem with the KPIs is the trustability. And the trustability is crucial also for the team. And I suppose that Vanessa can answer to this very, very beautiful question regarding the reaction of the people about the change management in terms of reskilling the people, redesigning the process. I suppose that this is an experience that Vanessa can share with the audience.
Yeah, thank you, Adriano. Yes, the experience is quite painful at the beginning. I mean, they usually react by feeling that the jobs are not being performed in the right way, and that this is not the approach. I mean, the approach is you're performing perfectly well, but the change is that your mindset, I mean, it's the alignment with the ultimate goal, that it's to have find information that is reliable, as you said, and it's to be used by different actors. So the upskilling and reskilling of the team is basic. I mean, they need to understand that their job is to analyze this information and not to be administrative people filling in information with no sense. I mean, they need to change, and they need to rely also on the technology to do so. So it's transforming the subjectivity of the tasks into a more objective, putting the weight into the technology. So at the beginning, they feel quite insecure, but I can tell you that once that they understand, once that they see the light at the end of the tunnel, and they see the results of this project, they feel really comfortable, they feel assured on the roles, and they feel that they are putting the value added really at the business, at the core of the business. So they are moving, I mean, on top of that, procurement, it's moving their role into a very, very strategic role. So this is the way I think it's normally, it's according my experience. They feel quite insecure. They feel that they are working a lot more because you are asking for different things at the beginning. But if you do it with the right technology and making sure that they understand the goal and the results of their jobs, they will be aligned and they will work with you because they feel part of the team. So it's like a kind of a agile oriented project.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just chime in just quickly on that topic. So one thing, being part of the team, one of the things that is important is if you can really set up a good cross-functional team, like process-wise, then what's great is you start to have visibility of the data across the process. So, you know, the classic example is when, you know, all this data flows downstream, let's just say source to pay or procure to pay. So the moment of truth is when it comes time to actually be matching the invoices, you know, against all of the upstream data. And the problem is that a lot of people in the requisitioning and the sourcing, they don't realize how the data is flowing and the impact that it's having on the downstream accounts payable process. And by being able to get full process visibility, it begins to create the visibility of the bad data, which is the first step. It's just like in the supply chain. The data supply chain is just like the physical supply chain. You just got to get visibility into the errors and the problems, and then bring that up to where the error is created, not in a, you know, in a conflicting kind of way, but just to say this is what it's impacting downstream. And I think that becomes the issue around more broadly for procurement to add value to the business. It's to kind of be able to say, we're here to highlight the data and the impact that the data is making so that, one, we can be confident in it so as we make decisions, because there's nothing that derails a process more than my numbers don't match your numbers, right? If you can't have them even being kind of close or explain the differences, that's not the position that you want to be in. But certainly the more in which procurement can help the business and finance understand where the data is coming from and how it can be used, then you're really empowering the business to be part of the procurement and supply management process versus, hey, I'm from procurement and I'm here to help. It's just like, you know, I'm from IT and I'm here to help, or, you know, this is more about giving them the tools to own the data and to use the data to improve their outcomes. And that changes how procurement itself is strategically viewed. It becomes more of an enabler versus one of, I'm going to drive this process and look for my savings. You know, that is not where, you know, you want to be.
So. That's it. Fully agree. And on top of that, I would say that I don't like to work in silos. So you need to understand how your work impact others. I mean, not only procurement, but finance, but technical teams. And so you need to make them understand that what they fill in, I mean, the information that they put into the system is quite valuable, and it's part of the flow that nourish everyone. So I fully agree with your point, Pierre.
Yep.
So we are running out of time. We have a lot of questions here to answer. Unfortunately, we have 30 seconds left. And by the way, we will answer to all of the questions possibly. All the attendees and the people that has described will receive the recording of this session. So I would thank you, all of the attendees, and obviously Vanessa and Pierre for this valuable session. And thank you all of you, and have a good day. And
stay safe.
And stay safe,
Yeah.
obviously, in these hard
Yeah.
times.
Very
Bye-bye,
much.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.